Welcome to Beyond the Bottomline with
Anna Letitia Cook.
Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Bottomline. This evening's guest is Eva Medilek. She's a high-performance coach, an international speaker and a best-selling author. And today we're going to talk with her about high-performance relationships and success without stress and sacrifice, because she's the absolute expert on that. So welcome to the show. Thank you very much for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me, Anna. I appreciate it. Looking forward to our conversation.
I know, it'll be good, particularly because being different sides of the pond, I'm sure we've got different ideas and views, so it makes it even more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So can I start by asking you, high performance and stress, it's something that many of us aim for, but often we're very worried about the toll that it's going to take on our lives. So what do you think are the greatest challenges that we face in achieving this and getting the balance?
Well, most of us are really impacted about other people's opinions. And, I heard you say, how do we achieve balance? And we look at balance as being equal, spending just the amount of time on our personal life as our business or our professional lives or at work. And that creates stress, trying to create that equal balance. But when you look at a scale that's perfectly balanced, the number on the scale reads 0. And that's what happens when you try to achieve balance, that perfect balance between your work life and your personal life. You actually zero out your results. So you don't find balance, because we're all looking to find balance. You actually create balance. And we have the power to control literally what side of the scale to adjust by adding or subtracting as we see fit. We actually control the balance, because balance is different. It's personal. And so it looks different for everyone, but we have to stay in control of what that balance looks like. So sometimes it's spending more time on this priority. Another time it's spending more time on that priority. So you've got to look at balance as kind of a sliding scale, if you will.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought of it that way. Really interesting. And so if we're trying to control and adjust, and we still want real high performance, but without killing ourselves doing it, how can we plan our strategies better so that we really can try and achieve high performance, but in a positive way?
Absolutely. I call it my CPR for high performance success. And it really is CPR. So the first letter, the C, is clarity.
Yeah.
You have to be clear on what makes you happy.
Yeah.
And how to have more of that in your life. And also be clear on what makes you unhappy in your life and business. You have to really look at, is the vision that you have for your life matching your reality today? You've got to get clear on what those questions are. So ask yourself, what are my values? What are my priorities? What are my goals? And be clear on what they are.
Yeah.
And that brings in the P of the CPR, which is priorities. So you've got to get clear on what those priorities are now that you're clear on what the goals are. Because when you are not clear on what your priorities are, studies actually show that you're actually up to 30 times more likely to miss out on success. So where we spend our time, where we spend our time, our money, our energy is a direct reflection on our values and our priorities. So when our priorities are clear, it's easy to make decisions and give up or sacrifice what doesn't support or move forward our values and our goals and our priorities. And then the magic is actually in the R of that CPR, which means we've got to own the responsibility of creating and setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Because we make poor choices saying yes to everything to please everyone else.
Yes.
And we end up overcommitted, stressed, burnt out, and overwhelmed because of it. And so when we have clear boundaries, it actually creates safety and trust. And so our job is not only to set the boundaries, but to communicate them. We may have the boundaries in our minds and in our hearts, but we've got to communicate them. And the more we communicate what those boundaries are, the more support we get. And so we set them, we communicate them, we don't run from them, so that we can actually have that structure that prevents us from getting really burnt out and overwhelmed. And it really creates a really clear path on what we need to do to bring our priorities and values to light.
When you're trying to set the boundaries, for example, I have a thing about working hours, because when I started work, like a million centuries ago, success was short days. So the big bosses, they came in at 9:30, they left at 4:00, they played golf a couple of days a week, etc., which I think is wonderful. So I'm very much don't work late. But a lot of my clients and a lot of people I know, because they haven't experienced that before because of the change in way things happen, they find it very difficult to say no, even if it's reasonable, because they're worried about either appearing that they're not interested or not motivated, or they're going to hurt someone's feelings, or whatever the reason. What would you advise to help someone if they know the boundary they want to set, but they just need a little bit of extra support, to say it in the right way, or to get it across without offending somebody?
Well, our success depends on our ability to prioritize without guilt or regret. And so this is a case where our feelings are sabotaging our success. We don't want to, when we think about why it's so hard for us to do what we know that we need to do to have success in our lives, to take care of our health, our well-being, our relationships, is because we're so worried about what other people are thinking. We don't want to make a mistake. We don't want to let other people down. We're worried about what other people think. And we don't take a stand for what's important to us. So we've got to really take that courageous step of being clear on what's important to us, setting the boundaries around that. And, no can be a complete sentence. And what you'll find is that more often than not, people will respect your boundaries.
I agree.
It's really our internal feeling like, oh my God, what are they going to think? What are they going to say? We're creating that own turmoil within ourselves.
Exactly. So true. Thank you. Okay. No. Well, I have a problem with that as well. So that's why I feel, and I know a lot of people with the same thing. But you mentioned about a more holistic vision, and obviously holistic wellness, well-being really interests me, particularly in relation to success. And I'm always talking to people about holistic success, so success in all fields. So what do you think we need to focus on to ensure a more holistic vision of success, so we really enjoy our life, we've got time to do the things that we enjoy, that we want to do, but still following our chosen career path? Because that can become a muddle sometimes. It's quite difficult to organize.
Well, that's where the clarity comes in. You really got to be clear on what the vision you have is for your life, and ask yourself powerful questions. It's kind of your perfect average day. What does your perfect day look like for you? I always had a vision of the day that I wanted to have, the time I wanted to wake up, what I wanted to do in the morning, how I wanted to feel. I didn't want to feel rushed.
Yeah.
And one day I woke up and I was living my perfect day. And I was like, oh my God, I was really intentional about what steps I needed to take to make that happen. And so when you look at things holistically, really get clear on what you want to create, and then ask yourself, how can I create that? Who can support me in that? What needs to happen? What support do I need around that? Most of us try to do everything ourselves.
Yes.
And then we end up, exhausted. How do we create the energy that we needed? How do we generate, I should say? Because when you look at a power plant, it doesn't have energy. It generates energy. And so I often share the story of, a car race or a NASCAR race or the Indy 500 or whatever. We've all seen those races, right?
Yes.
And those cars are racing around the track at dangerously high speeds. And they want to make it to the finish line, hopefully win the race without crashing and burning. And I remember when I used to see a race, not that I was a racing fan, but when the lead car would pull over and stop for a pit stop, I would always think, why are you stopping now when nothing's wrong with the car? Aren't you going to fall behind and lose?
Yeah.
I'm thinking all the other cars are going to pass you up. You're not going to win the race. But they know that taking a pit stop is necessary to continue to race at peak performance without breaking down. And most of us are racing nonstop, trying to do everything we can to get ahead because we're afraid if we do stop, we're going to fall behind and lose. So imagine if you were to incorporate pit stops into your daily life.
Yeah.
How much further you would go, how much better your health would be, how much better you would feel in your well-being, how much happier your relationships would be.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be crashing and burning.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so we don't think of it that way. So when you look at that holistic approach, how can you set up your day with energy generating habits so that you can win the day, so that you can end the day with as much energy as you started, so that your families don't get what's left over of you at the end of the day. They're not scraping you up my husband used to literally scrape me off the couch and bring me to bed because I would fall asleep on the couch because I was running nonstop. My life, my business, I had this sense of urgency because I didn't become an entrepreneur till I was 50.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. And so I felt like, oh my God, I have so much to catch up. I have to go. Yeah. And then my health started breaking down.
Yeah.
I was always cranky, exhausted, in a bad mood. Yeah. And eventually my marriage almost broke up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know firsthand what that's like.
Yeah.
To almost
lose
it all.
Yeah.
Trying to have it all. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're so right about pit stops because it rejuvenates. It just gives you that little break, that little change of air almost that allows everything to come back up.
Exactly.
And relationships, I mean, you said there that your marriage nearly broke up, but relationships are a really strong part of its success and achieving the right results. So how can we understand, I mean, not just personal relationships, but business as well. How can we understand and, if necessary, improve our relationship style? Because I think sometimes that is also where we have maybe not a weak point, but we don't necessarily channel it as well as we could. And I know you're an expert on that as well. So
no, that's a really important question to ask. I actually developed an assessment quiz to determine what your relationship style is.
Yep.
Because we bring our habits, our patterns, our beliefs, and our behaviors into every situation and circumstance we encounter, even situations of influence. And it literally colors the lens through which we see the world. And so it's important to know how our nurturing is impacting, in some cases damaging and sabotaging how we show up in the world. And so when I work with my clients, one of the first things I do is discover what their relationship style is, how it was developed, what type of household they grew up in, what was modeled for them as far as relationships, and just to create that awareness of where those habits, patterns, beliefs, and behaviors are showing up, how they're showing up, and how they're damaging our relationships. And
That's
so
interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You can actually take it at evamedilek.com/quiz, which is just my name, .com/quiz. And it really shows you what your primary relationship operating style is. It's pretty darn accurate, if I do say so myself, although it's like university. You major in one style, you minor in another. Right? And once we are aware of what that is, then we can set specific transformation goals so that we can have more influence, more impact, and more persuasion in our lives, in our business, and learn how to be those role models of how to listen, how to teach people how to think, how to have a role model for certain types of behavior, how to challenge people to be their best. But we have to know ourselves before we can grow ourselves.
That's really interesting, because I know I developed something to do with beliefs and knowing where your beliefs come from and your values. So because often when you're not feeling comfortable in a job or whatever you're doing, it's because your deep down beliefs are not necessarily the ones that you're using at the moment. So you need to go back and find all of that. But the aspect of relationships, I'd never thought of, going back to childhood and what you had around you and what people's ways of interacting were and emotion and all of that. That is really interesting, because I know how successful my belief model is for a lot of people. So if they've got the relations, because the whole, everything you do comes from how you see and react and interact. So that must make an enormous difference. If you can understand and analyze and see how to use it and where you've got weaknesses because of something in the past, or where you've absorbed it just because you've grown up in that sort of atmosphere and it isn't necessarily what you want to portray. I'm going to do your quiz. I'm definitely going to do your quiz.
And it really lays the foundation that you can build your high performance future on. Because once we are aware of where our saboteurs and our blocks are, and most people, it's funny when I do this work with my clients, I have a lot of people who will say, well, my mother was X, Y, and Z. And, if it's not one thing, it's your mother, right? My mother was this, my mother was that. And then as we peel back the onion, I like to say, we found out they're really mostly affected because their dad didn't step in and stop mom from doing X, Y, and Z. If the mom was a stronger, more maybe abusive personality or whatever in that relationship. And we grow up thinking, well, because mom was hard on me, mom was overly critical or maybe overprotective. But what I find is most people are really disappointed that dad didn't do more.
Didn't protect them.
Or that dad wasn't around to intervene. And it's really that interesting, like, oh my God, my therapist never told me this, and it's not like we stay in the past long, but just enough to create what I call that thread or that through line of awareness is into how that impacts how you interact in your relationships today.
Oh, that's fascinating. Huh. Right. I'm definitely going to do that.
It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. And I'll put the link on the bottom of the page so that anyone who's reading, they can get it. And again, you said it's evamedilek.com/quiz. Yeah. Okay.
Very
perfect.
Easy.
Just anyone who's listening to the podcast when they're running or
Right.
something, that's how they can find it. So,
Yes.
Okay, going on again to do with relationships to a certain extent, business success and personal success, they're strongly related and dependent on relationships and how we relate to other people. So what can we do to have a more coherent relationship style in the different parts of our life so that we're feeling more natural and more comfortable, and that we don't have to change sort of our persona in different contexts? Because I know sometimes I used to be in sales, so I can put my sales head on, or I can put my coach head on, but it must be better to have a more coherent style that flows or stays pretty much the same, rather than completely changing character depending on the situation. So how can we do that?
That is really an interesting way of putting it. I've never heard it put that way before, but I've developed a framework of what I call influential listening.
Yep.
And it's a framework that I follow in my business life, especially in my married life, on how to listen for understanding. And it's called, it's my LAPI framework. Yep. Listen, acknowledge, paraphrase, and inquire.
Yep.
When you follow those 4 tenets in all of your relationships and all of your conversations, it's not just for difficult conversations. I think it's a more holistic approach to being curious and not judgmental.
Yes.
And here's what I mean by that. Most of us listen to react or respond or even defend.
Yep.
But what if we listened for understanding?
Yeah.
Just listen for understanding, not to agree, not to disagree, not to defend, not to react, not to respond, but listen for understanding. And then we acknowledge the other person, because honestly, most conflicts happens when we don't feel seen, heard, acknowledged, or respected in our conversations. So what if we create a framework that every conversation we have, we acknowledge the other person for what they shared and the trust that they had to share with us.
Yeah.
And then we want to paraphrase or restate, if you will, for understanding.
Yeah.
Not that you can necessarily understand, because everybody's experience of life is different. But what you can do is say, here's my understanding of what you said. Yep. What I'm hearing you say is, or can you clarify this for me for more understanding? This is what I'm hearing you say. Did I get that right? Nothing does more to have a person feel heard, like, yes, they got it. They got what I was trying to say. Doesn't mean I agree with you. I may think you're 100% wrong. That may not be my position, but you feel understood in that moment.
Yes.
And then the most powerful piece of this is the I, is to be in the inquiry of what I call how we can create forward movement from this situation. What would you like to experience instead? Who could you reach out to for support? What would you like to create in this situation? How would you like to see this turn out? Because most people, you'll hear a lot of people complain and don't really have a solution, but they just want to complain. And so a lot of the things that I'll just add to this, I ask people, especially my daughters, like, how would you like me to listen? Do you just want to just have somebody hear everything you have to say and not respond at all? Or are you looking for collaborative solutions or advice? Like, what do you need in this moment?
Yeah.
And so I think, when we are in the inquiry, that we ask open-ended questions that lead to forward movement, and not close-ended questions where, is there anything I can do? No. That shuts the conversation down.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And that's how I would say it's something that you can do and still be your authentic self.
Yes.
But also keeping in mind that, you want to be a role model for how to have influence and how to create forward movement
Yep.
in any situation that, you're encountering. And so that could be at the family dinner table, deciding where we go on vacation, or, getting a client or putting a deal together.
Yep.
It can be used across the board.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. And it makes such a difference if someone listens and they're not always coming in and, trying to give you a solution or give you an idea, but just to be able to feel you've been appreciated for what you've said.
Yeah.
It's very good. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
So you've given us some absolutely wonderful gems, wonderful advice. Have you any final piece of wisdom or key strategy you think we should keep in mind to help us going forward?
Yes, actually I do. I want to add, when we were talking about open-ended questions, who, what, where, when, how, I want to just really have people know that even the why is an open-ended question, to use it with caution. Because if I said to you, why did you say that? You see, the feeling in your body changes a little bit to where you
like
have to
attack.
defend yourself.
Yeah.
Kind of feels like an attack, like you said.
Yeah.
So I would use why with caution when being in the inquiry, and be like, instead of asking why you said that or why you did that, I would ask, what's another way you could have approached that problem? Then it gets you thinking of alternative solutions, if you will, instead of defending what you did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. And I am the worst person for saying why. I say why to everything. And I've never thought of it like that.
Like a 5-year-old. Why is the sky blue? Why is a bird flying?
Exactly.
That's a cute curiosity.
Yeah, not mine. No, but because as soon as you said it, I could see it's like attack. But I say it all the time and I've never thought that before. Yeah, it makes such a difference. So thank you very much. I'm sure people are going to want to read more about you, learn more about you, get in touch. So how can they get in touch with you to find out more? What's the best way?
The best way is my website, evamedilek.com. But, I would say that if someone really wants to be in the inquiry and the conversation of how to bring high performance living into their lives, just go to talkwitheva.com, and I'm happy to get on the phone, the Zoom with you, and let's see if this is something that would be a fit for what your priorities, goals, and values are, and creating the habits that will get you there.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. That's brilliant. Eva, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And I loved hearing everything you had to say.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Everybody, thank you for listening in. You've been listening and watching Eva Medilek. As she said, her website is evamedilek.com, so you can contact her there. All of her links will also be on the bottom of the page. I hope you can all come and join us again next week. Have a nice week and see you all soon. Bye.